Day, proclaimed by Congress, signed by President Ronald Reagan in 1986, and celebrated throughout the entire United States. Please join me in welcoming the remarkable Doug Freeman.
My mother would not believe any of that, just so you know. So I was asked to spend a couple of minutes and give you a little anecdotal story about National Philanthropy Day, and I'm really happy to do that. You see, you're under the misapprehension that this began in 1986, but I got to tell you the true story. It actually began in Orange County in 1981. And here's the backdrop story. So in 1981, in February, and don't laugh when I tell you I was in Minneapolis in February of 1981, giving a talk at a very prominent museum, the Walker Museum of Art there, and I was in front of 200 of the most prominent, most generous group of men and women, perhaps anywhere on the planet. Minnesota and Minneapolis in particular, very generous community. And I found myself saying thank you many times to them for raising the bar, for all of us raising the bar. On my way home from that experience, I wrote a letter I was just compelled because I realized we didn't say thank you enough to the men and women and children who have made our community so amazing. And so I wrote a letter to, you can't leave me on an airplane too long because I get dangerous when I have too much time to think. So I wrote a letter to Ed Meese, who had at that point just been appointed as the chief of staff for Ronald Reagan. Now, I didn't know Ed Meese, but I knew a guy who knew a guy, and I could get it to Ed Meese. And so I write this letter. I think it's a great idea. We should have a day to celebrate American philanthropy, and we've changed the world, much less our own communities. So I write that letter, it goes off, and this is in February. I didn't hear anything. I know that surprises you. I didn't get an immediate letter back from the White House saying, great idea, it'll be starting on Friday. In fact, I didn't hear anything until May of that year, 1981. I was chairing a program on philanthropy at what was then the John Wayne Tennis Center and Club Alpha Jamboree. It was a 2-day program on philanthropy in Orange County, and we had there some of the great leaders of our community, philanthropic leaders and community leaders. And I had invited Lynn Nofziger, who was at that point the political advisor to newly elected Ronald Reagan. And he came, he spoke, and he stayed the entire first day, which is extraordinary in my mind. And at the end of that, I took him to the airport, and on the way to the airport, he says to me, gee, Doug, this is really a very interesting day, very impressive people, and I was just so happy to be part of it. If there's anything I can do, he never finished the sentence. If there's anything I can do to help you. I said, funny you asked, here's the letter I wrote to Ed Meese. So he looked at the letter, he says, oh, Ed Meese doesn't ever respond. Don't worry about that. Let me talk to him, he says. And literally a week later, like on a Thursday, I get this phone call from the White House. Can you be in the White House on Monday? Oh yeah, I got nothing to do. Monday, yeah, sure, I'll be in the White House. Who am I meeting in the White House? So I go to the White House, and there I get the chance. Nofziger is there. I said hello to the president. I was put into an office with a gentleman by the name of Jim Coyne. Jim Coyne was a former congressman who had been appointed by the president to run an office that he had just created, the president had just created, called the Office of Private Sector Initiatives. And I told the story. He asked me why. I told him why. I thought it was a great idea. He said, you got to understand something. We at the White House don't do anything. We just urge everybody to do something. So we have no power. He says, tell you what you do. You get Congress to approve a bill, and I'll get the president to sign it. Right? I said, I get Congress to approve the bill. I get to do that. So fast forward 4 years. 4 years, 40 trips to Washington, 4,000 letters, a board of 45 people from the leadership of some of the greatest organizations, including the President of the American Bar Association, by the way, as long as we're going to pick on lawyers. The President of the American Bar Association joined that board, head of the Red Cross, head of the Girl Scouts, head of the Boy Scouts, you name it, they were all there. And lobbyists in 50 states, because you had to get every senator and congressman to either agree or not to disagree. But all of that, so that was 5 years, and in 1986 is when the president signed it. But all of that began in Orange County. So when you think about it, it was Orange County's event with the men and women, many of whom are still in this room, some of us not quite as vertical as we used to be. Those men and women, those individuals, our colleagues who have created these amazing community organizations, so impressed this one political leader, Lynn Osgood, that the ball was rolling and inevitably ended in this day today. So when anybody says to you, yeah, it began in 1986, you say, yeah, but in Orange County, that was 1981, baby. It is my great privilege to have the responsibility and opportunity to recognize and present to you the Outstanding Philanthropist Award recipients. This award recognizes an outstanding individual, family, or family foundation with a proven record of exceptional generosity and public service, and who has demonstrated charitable responsibility and generosity that inspires others to philanthropic action. I know sitting in the audience over the last 33 years in these meetings, these events, I leave here inspired every time, and usually it's by a 12-year-old. Today we had a much older young lady who's on her way to college. Those individuals lifted my spirit in a way that only that kind of generosity could possibly do. So this award, the Outstanding Philanthropist of the Year, is sort of a symbolic award to that individual, or in our case, that couple. Please view the video.
When I think of Charlie and Ling, I think of people that give from their heart. It's never about having their name on something. It's always about what people need and making life better.